Okay, so good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So the Selkie Project is organising a series of... Wait, can everybody please just make sure you're on mute if you're not speaking, please, because there's quite a bit of feedback going on there. Thank you very much. So the Selkie Project is organising a series of events focusing on providing business support for companies looking to diversify into the marine energy sector. These events will give your company the opportunity to learn more about key themes from events from experts in the sector and help in your endeavours to enter and work in this innovative and growing industry. It will also give you the opportunity to network and meet other companies that are in the sector. So today's session is going to be focused on testing and validation. We're joined by Saul Young from the Marine Energy Test Area and Magnus Harold from the Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence. So the Marine Energy Test Area is a newly operational marine energy test centre in Pembrokeshire, Wales. So the aim is to reduce the time, cost and risks faced by those looking to test marine energy devices and equipment in order to accelerate growth in the sector. So META will be presenting alongside the Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence, that's MEECE, which is a multi-million-pound collaboration between the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult and Welsh universities based in Pembroke Dock. So MEECE delivers research, development and demonstration activities to support innovation in the Welsh supply chain, accelerating the commercialisation of the wave, tidal and offshore wind sectors by reducing the cost of energy. Together, META and MEECE will delve into the process of developing, testing and validating new technology and how real sea testing at pre-consented sites like META, alongside support from MEECE to design, deploy and assess technology can play a valuable part in this process. So a few housekeeping guidelines just before we begin. So I've already asked everybody to remain on mute if you're not speaking. That just makes sure that we can hear our speakers more clearly. It would be great if everybody could right click on themselves, their own icon or image, and put the name of the company that they're joining from today as well, just alongside the name. That way we know where everybody's joining us from. We will shortly hear from our experts and then we'll have a Q&A at the end of the session. If you have any questions come to you while they're presenting, please feel free to put them in the chat, and that way we can come back to you when it's time to ask the questions at the end. And then during the Q&A, you're more than welcome to use the raise your hand feature, and we'll come to you when we have the time. There's also a chat function. If you have any technical issues, feel free to pop them in there and one of my colleagues will assist you in the background. But yeah, Q&A for Q&A, chat for technical issues, please. You can follow us on Twitter and LinkedIn at the Selkie Project, no, at Selkie Project, sorry, to keep up to date with all of the activity that the Selkie Project is undertaking. So I'll now just give you a quick presentation just on an introduction to the Selkie Project. And then I will hand you over to today's speakers. So is that working? Is that in the correct form? Somebody give me a nod or a shake head. Is that presenter view or?
No, need to go into full screen, Jay.
Need to go into full screen. There we go. So the Selkie Project is a collaborative project made up of 6 partners. That's UCC, University College Cork, Swansea University, Marine Energy Wales, Venturmorn, DP Energy, and Gavin and Doherty Geosolutions. What is Selkie? Well, the main purpose of Selkie is to bridge these two worlds of research and industry so that research is useful, produces useful outputs for industry, and industry feeds into research to sort of assist and guide them. It's all about building that bridge and that community. Sorry, I'm terrible with words today. Building that communication channel between the two. They're developing a number of open access tools and models to help bring down the costs in industry. The universities are developing with input from industry that will be free at the point of use and will overall bring down costs. And then we're also doing a lot of industry engagement and business support as part of that, helping small companies that want to diversify into the sector. And that's part of what today's session is about. And this Meet the Expert series is providing a little bit of business support and guidance to those that want to work in the marine energy sector. And then we have a network of many companies that are working in the sector. This is just a small sample of them here. If you're interested in joining the Selkie Network and you're not a member already, you can get in touch with my colleague Sophie. I'm sure she'll put her contact details in the chat. But that's it from me. I'm going to hand you over to our experts now. So Saul Young is the operations manager at META, the Marine Energy Test Area. I believe he's having some camera difficulties today, but you should be able to hear him. I'm going to hand over to him and he will begin his presentation. So over to you, Saul. Are you there, Saul?
Yeah, sorry. Here we go. Technical difficulties. I think the weather in Wales is causing havoc or something.
Sometimes that happens.
I don't know. It's
yeah, anyway, we're looking forward to your presentation on the testing and validation at META, Saul. So as long as we can hear you and we can see your presentation, we should all be fine.
Yeah, there you go. I'll put it on full screen. Is that full screen, Jay?
That's full screen, but you're not presenting yet. There we go. Yeah, it's in full.
Yeah,
there we go.
There we go. Bit of delay there. Yeah, apologies, my video is not working. Yeah, you'll have to use your imagination. So yeah, thanks for the introduction, Jay. I think you've basically introduced META pretty well there, so I won't go into too much at the moment. But yeah, I'm Saul Young, Operations Manager at the Marine Energy Test Area, and this is the Meet the Expert testing and validation session. So I don't know if we're quite experts yet because we haven't been doing it long. We're newly operational, but getting there. So what is META? Jay explained this quite nicely. We're Wales's National Marine Energy Test Area. We're located in Milford Haven, Southwest Wales. And META offers 8 pre-consented test sites for accessible real sea testing and provides a sort of dedicated area for research and innovation. Our mission is to reduce the time, cost and risks faced by technology developers in order to accelerate growth in this sector. And we do this by providing the consented sites in a really accessible location. We're also looking to complement the existing test centre network across the UK, including the 2 Welsh demonstration zones, which are in the pipeline. So yeah, we've got a range of test sites from Quayside sites, which offer less challenging conditions, to open water sites for scale and full scale device testing. We're in a unique location right by Milford Haven Port and Pembroke Port, so close to deep water port and lots of infrastructure. There's excellent local supply chains, so engineers, fabricators and marine contractors who can bring a project from the build and design phase through to installation all the way through to decommissioning. And ultimately META is set up to support technology, research, innovation and development. So a little bit more on the sites. We've got 5 Quayside sites. These are all highly accessible, associated with Pembroke Port, which you can see in the picture. So yeah, there's an aerial shot and there's the GIS map of how the sites fit into that port. They're all sheltered, but still representative somewhat of a real sea environment. Yeah, we expect short-term testing at these sites, so 1 month to a year of component sub-assemblies, but you could do some dip testing of a full-scale device. Essentially, these are low-risk sites where lessons can be learned quickly before higher-risk deployments further offshore. So that's our 5 Quayside sites. The testing activities kind of mentioned, but yeah, component testing, operational testing, dip testing of devices, support structures, moorings and foundations, deployment retrieval methodologies, vessel approach and recovery, and also the ops procedures around any tests that go in the water and the health and safety procedures, so putting things into practice. So that's the sort of things we expect at the Quayside sites. We've also got open water sites, so 3 open water sites. These sites benefit from a greater resource and depth and area, but they're still relatively close to port, as you can see on this map of Milford Haven. So we've got Dale Roads, which is a scale wave test site, Warrior Way, which is a scale tidal test site, and then East Pickard Bay, which is more of like a full scale shallow water wave energy test site, but we can also accommodate floating offshore wind component testing at this site. So a little bit more on the site characteristics. Warrior Way is 19 meters deep with peak spring flows up to 1.5 meters a second, potentially a little bit higher. And yeah, like I said, suited to scale or micro scale tidal energy converters, as well as other instrumentation or support infrastructure that would be of interest to test here. Dale Roads is the next one. We've got, up to 12 meters depth. It's pretty sheltered because it's just inside the mouth of the haven, but it does experience, a consistent moderate wave climate. So we've recorded significant wave heights at this site up to 2.8 meters and peak periods up to 18 seconds. And then we've got East Bickard Bay, which is the most exposed site and some of the best wave resource in Wales for a shallow water site. So depths up to 29 meters, and we've recorded a significant wave height up to 13 meters and peak period up to 18 seconds. So this is more for your full scale or your next level from Dale Roads. So the activity is supported at these sites. I've mentioned, full scale wave energy and scale wave energy converters, tidal energy converters, and then other bits of kit, so monitoring equipment or support infrastructure or component testing. We do support component testing for floating offshore wind. So yeah, that could be the floater or a mooring solution, but we can't actually deploy a full assembly, including the turbine. But this is a high level overview of what a test might be described as. But as part of each test, there'll be lots of pieces of testing and validation, whether that's validating numerical models or power production, or assessing a mooring or anchoring solution, or subsystem performance, or seeing how installation and decommissioning methodologies work in practice and O&M, and then looking at device reliability and survivability, or biofouling and corrosion, or structural integrity. So alongside these high-level descriptions of a test, there's lots of more pieces that make up that test. So yeah, we think we're ideal for marine energy technology developers. We support them to get their kit by having pre-consented sites. And we aim to provide a catalogue of site data, which we're constantly building, so on the resource and seabed conditions. So that saves a lot of time and risk and costs, for developers associated with consenting and site development. And we aim to be a stepping stone between tank testing and commercial sites, which I'll get onto shortly. We also can accommodate supply chain companies developing new products and solutions that support marine energy or even other marine industries. And yeah, supply chain can also test these at META. In addition, I think the activity around META, we hope, should stimulate demand for supply chain and bring in business for local businesses. Then we also think META can act as a hub for research and innovation and facilitate academic research. So we've worked closely with Welsh universities on a number of research projects, such as wave modelling and tidal stream modelling, as well as a lot of seabed modelling as well. But there's a huge amount of options for future collaborations between academia and industry that META could facilitate, some of which are presented here. And that could be around modelling or material testing, or working on complete devices or subsystems, or developing and validating new monitoring tools. So yeah, potential for collaboration there. As I've said, we're a newly operational test centre, so we haven't had that much on-site activity thus far. But this year so far, we've had 2 projects. One being drones have been deployed for measuring surface currents. So this could be a sort of novel, easily deployable, low-risk way of doing a tidal stream resource assessment, and complementary to ADCP data, as the drone will capture the surface currents. We also did another project with Swansea University, where they've deployed a convergence beam ADCP. So yeah, another sort of novel monitoring or resource assessment tool to try and capture more accurate turbulence data. And that was deployed at our Criterion Jetty Quayside site. As you can see in this sort of schematic here, how it worked in practice. and they're going to hope to deploy a full-scale device at Warrior Way later this year. And we've also got 3 other tests in the pipeline for this year, so watch this space, as they say. Worth mentioning, we're part of the Pembroke Dock Marine Project. So this is a £60 million project that brings together the Port of Milford Haven, Wave Hub Development Services, the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult MEECE project, who you'll hear from shortly, and ourselves as META. So the key part, one of the biggest parts of the project, is the port is undergoing large-scale reconstruction to support manufacturing, assembly, and O&M activities. So that involves, creating big laydown areas in the sort of mega slipway, and improving the facilities there for offshore renewables. And then we've got the Pembrokeshire demonstration zone, so that will provide a facility for flowing offshore wind and wave energy demonstration. We've got ourselves, and we provide a sort of scale test site for getting kit in the water, and then the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence, MEECE, provide support to enable companies to develop new products and services and bring these to market. And Magnus will be presenting on MEECE shortly. So that's a little insight to PDM. The project's just kicked off, and so watch the space on that one as well. That's a comprehensive introduction to META, I think. So it's probably worth going into a little bit more detail on testing and validation. And I think TRL, or technology readiness level, is a good place to start. I'm sure many of you will be familiar with TRL, and is essentially a process or a scale established by NASA to describe the advancement in development of a technology, and is now widely used in marine energy to understand how mature a technology is and what sort of risk it is at. So TRL is split into 9 levels, TRL 1 being basic principles observed, so essentially just an idea, up to TRL 9, which is a commercially viable project, or product, in fact. So that's broadly it. There are different variations of this TRL scale, but that's broadly it. So then we've got TRL 1 to 4 is mainly about proving a concept in a controlled environment. Once the technology has reached TRL 4, i.e. been validated in a lab, this is where testing in a real sea environment, such as META, comes in. At this point, we've gone from an idea to an actual technology. And then TRL 4 to 7 involves sort of more realistic testing. So that means testing in a relevant, realistic, or actual operational environment, such as META. These stages involve collecting more performance data and verifying results. Then at TRL 8, the system is somewhat complete and qualified, and at TRL 9, it's commercially viable, mature technology with verified performance data and long-term reliability proven and through demonstration. So the main advantage of this TRL scale is it gives an objective way of assessing the maturity of technology and how close it is to commercial readiness and what the next stage should be for that technology. So this leads quite nicely into the Welsh Test Centre network. So as you may be aware, Wales and UK is furnished nicely with test centres which make up a network. So the aim is that these are stepping stones through the TRL scale. In Wales, there are test tank facilities at Bangor, Cardiff, and Swansea University. And I think Magnus is going to MEECE collaborate with these universities, and Magnus is going to introduce how testing at these tanks can be facilitated. The beauty of test tanks is a wave climate or tidal stream climate can be simulated. And so it's good for testing concept models or scale models between sort of 1/25 to 100th scale models, and TRL 1 to 4. So these universities all have a strong interest in marine energy and hydrodynamic modeling, and a track record of collaborating with industry. Then we've got scale real sea testing at META. So I've introduced META in detail, but that's the sort of next TRL 4 to 7. And then there's commercial demonstration sites in Wales. So we've got Ramsey Sound, which is a grid connected site for a single tidal stream device. So there's currently a device coming out of the water there and a new one going in, but we hope all the data from both the decommissioning and I think the installation of the new device is going to be shared widely for the benefit of the industry. So that's an interesting demo project. And then we've got sort of full scale array demonstration opportunities at Morelice for tidal stream. It's going to be a 250 megawatt site. So that's in North Wales. And then the Pembrokeshire demonstration zone, which Wave Hub are operating, which will be a full scale demo zone for floating offshore wind and wave energy. So as you can see, there's possibility, and all those demo sites will be grid connected, so a chance to generate revenue. So as you can see, there's the possibility to progress technology from TRL 1 to 9 in Wales. So some of the value of testing, validation, demonstration. So the benefits for developers, ensuring your system meets operational requirements, validating numerical models, and gaining ops experience, identifying areas of improvement and lessons learned to incorporate into future designs, and to sort of progress up that TRL scale on route or with the end game of commercialization. We've got benefits for securing investment as well. So demonstrating a device in the real sea gives confidence by proving that real sea performance. And then if a technology, the results from a test are verified by an accredited third party, this builds credibility and bankability. So at the moment at META, we don't offer accreditation services, but companies such as ORE Catapult and DNVGL and EMEC can provide accreditation for renewable energy. And some of this can be off-site, so they could come and do power performance assessment at META. So although we don't necessarily provide accreditation at the moment, in collaboration with MEECE, we could set up a test plan which complies with the standards. So then test results could be verified. So quick insight for those interested at testing at META to the process and the timelines. So we call stage 1 initial contract signing, and that would be about 2 months. So that's looking at feasibility and sharing our data and seeing if it's going to be, if the site's going to work for a technology, and drawing up an agreement for testing. Then the next stage is sort of pre-installation planning, and that should be around 3 months, but potentially more. So drawing up plans and putting in place the appropriate documentation, and getting your contractors organized. And we don't necessarily produce anything, but META's here to facilitate that process. So providing checklists or templates, or connecting with supply chain. Then we've got the installation and testing period, so that could be 1 to 18 months at META, and then decommissioning and demobilization, so around 1 month, and that will involve the berth being vacated and facilities cleared, and the developer then taking away their test results and reporting on these. So I think that's a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So the take-home points for me are: testing is key to technology development, of course. Technology validation and demonstration bolsters credibility and bankability. META offers quayside and open water sites. We provide a facility for tech developers, but also supply chain and academia. And META caters primarily for TRL 4 to 7. And we work closely with the Pembroke Dock marine projects, including the Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence, MEECE. So I think I've gone on long enough, but thank you for the opportunity to present, and happy to take any questions. Back to you, Jay.
Thank you very much for that, Saul. So yeah, if anybody does have any questions, please feel free to submit them in the chat and we'll come to those at the end. So we're going to move on to our next speaker now. So that's Magnus Harold from the Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence. And he'll talk a little bit more about the support they provide in validation and testing.
Thanks, Jay. Hopefully you can hear and see me. I'm having some difficulties with my internet this morning, but
seems like everybody's having that today.
Yeah, let me know, and I can always switch to tethering off my phone or something. I'll just share my screen.
Yeah, all good.
So I hope you can see that. It's in full screen mode.
Yep.
Yeah, so as Jay said, I'm Magnus. I work for a company called the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. Delighted to be here today to talk about some of our testing and validation activities, particularly those that we're about to begin in Wales through our MEECE project, which I'll come on to in a little bit shortly. So the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, we're the UK's leading technology and innovation centre for offshore renewables. That includes offshore wind, wave and tidal energy. And you know, we're a not-for-profit organisation. Our aim really is to see the development of the offshore renewable energy industry, helping that industry as part of our net zero targets in the future. And alongside that, we want to not only see the development of offshore renewable energy projects, but we want to ensure that UK companies benefit from the industry along the way. So making sure that there's high UK content in projects, as well as making sure that we're upskilling companies here in the UK such that they can export that expertise to projects worldwide. At our core, we're funded by Innovate UK. We're a research technology organisation. We are, in some ways, we're a bit like a university, but the main difference is that we generally sit a bit closer to the market and industry than a university normally would. So we tend to be a little bit better connected in that regard. But we do quite a lot of varied work. I've tried to summarise it here in 3 bullet points. A lot of our work is about reducing costs in the sector, improving the performance of the sector, as well as the reliability of these machines that are going out. We work an awful lot with supply chain, as well as SMEs and startups to help them de-risk new technologies and innovations and help them foster their growth. And we do also, of course, we work with universities as well, taking academic research and helping commercialize that. So we are headquartered in Glasgow. A number of our employees are based there, but we have a number of offices around the UK now. And I would say that's really a reflection of the fact that this is a UK-wide industry, and that there's a real need for us to have people on the ground in each of these regions. And Wales is certainly no different, and I'll come on to that in a second. But in terms of sort of our testing activities, much of this takes place in Blyth, which is just north of Newcastle. We have a number of fairly unique and kind of world-class type facilities there. We've got things like powertrain rigs, wind turbine blade test rigs. I'll come on to these in a bit more detail in a second, as well as things like grid simulators, high voltage laboratories, and test rigs for testing subsea cables. Elsewhere, we also operate our own wind turbine, an offshore wind turbine. That's based just in a place called Levenmouth in Fife, which is just north of Edinburgh. That's a 7 megawatt machine. It's a research turbine. It not only does it provide power to the UK grid, but we actually use it to de-risk a lot of new technologies. So companies can come to us and perhaps they might want to test a new sensor or a new inspection technology, and will allow them access to that turbine to do that, which is fairly unique, and you know, it has led to a lot of, it's been hugely beneficial to the industry in terms of de-risking a lot of technologies, and something that would have been difficult for these companies to do on, you know, commercial type projects. But as I said, we've got a number of regional offices now too. I work from the one in Wales, which is based in Pembroke Dock, not far from Marine Energy Wales. We opened that in 2019, and I'll come on to that in a bit more detail in a second. Just to highlight a couple of our test facilities that we do have, some of the big ones. These are both in Blyth. So the picture on the left shows you our 15 megawatt powertrain facility, which we can use for testing some of the largest wind turbines that are in development at the moment. We also have a number of smaller rigs. There's a 1 and 3 megawatt test rig as well, which have been used in the past to test tidal turbines in a very similar way. And you can do things here like accelerated lifetime testing, performance testing. You might be interested in looking at the efficiency of your drivetrain, for example, as well as we can plug it into our grid emulator to test things like grid compliance. So there's a number of tests we can run using these facilities. The picture on the right is our blade test facility. This is a 100-meter blade test facility. So, you know, a few years ago, this facility was, you know, more than capable of testing the world's largest wind turbine blades, but now the industry is getting to a point where we're beginning to exceed 100 meters for blade lengths. So, this facility still sees a lot of action. We can do things like dual axis testing, so flexing the blades in both the flatwise and the edgewise directions. Look at things like modal and natural frequency type analyses. And we also have a rain erosion test rig in this facility. Okay, coming back to our activities in Wales, and specifically our MEECE project, which stands for Marine Energy Engineering Centre of Excellence. This really is our main project that we're running from the Welsh office at the moment. It's a 5-year, £11 million project, in which we are supporting Welsh companies to develop new products and services for the marine energy sector. Primarily at the moment, we're working with companies like technology developers, the local supply chain, as well as SMEs and startups. So we can work across the sort of technology readiness level scale. We don't mind if, you know, it's an inventor with maybe just a patent. We can help evaluate the value of that patent, or if it's a company that's, you know, at the higher end and just needs a bit of a final push to reach commercialization. The project itself is a partnership with 4 Welsh universities. They are Bangor, Cardiff Metropolitan, and Swansea University. All of these universities, you know, have been at the forefront of marine energy research for a number of years now. And, you know, it's a very logical decision to have them on board and to strengthen the MEECE project. And what we offer is essentially free research support at no, obviously, financial cost to the companies in Wales to help them develop these products and services. I'll come on to what that looks like in a bit more detail in a second. Our aim is to place Welsh companies at the heart of the UK's growing offshore renewable energy sector, you know, making sure that Wales has a voice and plays a key role in tackling global climate change. So Saul mentioned the Pembroke Dock Marine project. So as he said, we're one of the 4 pillars alongside META in that project. I won't dwell on this too much, but essentially, you know, the Pembroke Dock Marine project aims to establish Pembrokeshire as a world-class hub for marine energy expertise. So we're very happy to be involved in that project too. Coming back to what MEECE can do and what kind of support is available to companies. So our main goal really is to help companies develop new products and services. and we can support you. If you have an idea, we can support you first of all in the design of these products, for example, and then we can also take that to the next level and help you build a prototype of that device. We can also fund the testing and any verification and validation activities. We can, as Sol was saying, we can set up a test campaign that, if it's certification that you want to work towards, we can set up a test campaign such that you're doing the correct procedures in order to achieve certification, for example. And we also offer a number of kind of, I would say, more desk-based type studies to evaluate things like technical feasibility. That might be through numerical modeling, for example. We can do things like economic assessments to, look at things like what is the impact of your technology, how could it impact on costs in the sector, as well as things like the market potential. And more recently, we've been doing a lot of work on the life cycle analysis of new technologies. The company that we support through MEECE, they don't need to make any financial contribution. This is a free resource that's available, but the company must have an address in West Wales and the Valleys, which is the darker pink region that's highlighted on this map. If you're not based in West Wales and the Valleys, we might still be able to help you. We might be able to offer our support to you. If you want to do a project that offers clear benefit to this region, that would usually be okay and would tick the right box. And out of area companies can also be part of a consortium where, say, for example, you had a supply chain company that you worked with and that was based in West Wales and the Valleys. We could support that company, which would indirectly support you. So that's another way we can involve you in consortium style projects, as long as one company is in the area. Just to quickly run through a couple of case studies of projects we are working on at the moment to give you a kind of flavour of things we're doing. This is a project with a company called Intelligent Moorings. They are a North Wales based SME, and they're developing this mooring damper technology for the floating offshore wind market, referred to as the Intelligent Mooring System, or just IMS for short. Think of it as like a large shock absorber that you put on the end of your mooring lines. Some sort of desk-based estimates suggest that it has the potential to reduce peak mooring forces by as much as 50% on floating wind platforms. And that could be significant in terms of cost savings for your mooring system. Moorings at the moment, some estimates suggest they account for as much as 10% of floating wind capex. If you use something like the IMS on your mooring system, you could then use a lighter, lower grade and lower cost mooring material. So that might bring about cost savings in that way. And there could also be indirect benefits, through things like lighter anchors with reduced holding capacity if you've reduced your mooring forces. And if you've got a lighter mooring system, you might be able to use sort of smaller and cheaper installation vessels. So we think, there are a number of direct and indirect cost benefits from this mooring damper technology. And there are a number of other companies developing similar technologies at the moment. In terms of what we're doing to support intelligent moorings, we're really helping them demonstrate that technology at sea for the first time. Up until now, they've done just lab testing, and they've proven the concept in a laboratory, but they've never taken the device and proven it in a real world environment. So we're working with META on this project to do a demonstration there. So our support is helping them design a sort of scale version of the device for testing at META. We're also helping fund the build, commissioning of that device, and then ultimately the sea testing of it. This, as I said, will be the first time it's tested at sea, and it should enable the technology to advance to TRL7 scale. We'll be testing it on a research buoy that is one of our assets in Wales. Essentially, it's an open access buoy that we hope to use in many projects in the future. Its sort of rough dimensions are 4 meters in diameter and 8 tons in weight. As I said, it's going to be installed at META later this year, initially at the Dale Roads test site that Sol mentioned. And we have various sensors installed in the buoy, so we can measure things like mooring forces, the motion of the buoy. We have external wave measurements as well to measure the instant wave resource. But the idea is that we can customize the buoy to meet your testing needs. So if there was an instrument or if there was a particular measurement you were interested in, we could facilitate that and make sure that the buoy was used to capture that. So that's intelligent moorings, and is a good example of a project we're running in Wales at META. We can also, through MEECE, provide access to other test assets that we have, and specifically ORE Catapult test assets based elsewhere. This is a project called Vortex Generators that we're running in partnership with Natural Power and Swansea University. These vortex generators are essentially small attachments that you place on the blades of a wind turbine, and that alters the aerodynamics around the wind turbine blade in such a way that the performance of the wind turbine improves. In fact, it's been estimated that these additions, the vortex generators, could increase annual energy production of wind turbines in the region of 1 to 3%. But in terms of what we're doing, we'll be placing the vortex generators on our research turbine in Leavenmouth that I mentioned previously, and we'll be running test campaigns that look at the performance with and without the attachments. But we can also run projects at our other test assets that I mentioned in our facility at Blythe, for example. And then lastly, coming maybe back to a slightly reduced scale, as Sol mentioned this as well, because MEECE is a partnership with universities in Wales, we can also provide and fund access to their test facilities. I've highlighted just 3 here. They have many test facilities, but these are 3 of which I thought were perhaps the most relevant to the marine energy sector. Swansea University has a state-of-the-art wind tunnel, for example. And there's a current flume at Cardiff University, which could be used, for example, for testing small tidal turbines. And Swansea University also, they have a wave flume. Again, you can run multiple tests here, but in the past it's been used to test scale wave energy devices. Okay, my last slide is actually a video of just some of our activities, and I thought it was quite nice. It shows you some of our test facilities in action. So I'll just let this play. Okay, and if you want to find out more information about the MEECE project, we do have a website which you'll find a link to here. I've also included contact details. There's one there for general inquiries, but I'm also happy for anyone to email myself as well. Okay, back to you, Dave.
Thank you very much for that, Magnus. It would be great if both yourself and Saul could drop your contact details in the chat so that anybody who is looking for sort of testing validation support can reach out to both of you. We have had a question come in from Manuel. Manuel, would you like to come on and ask your question? He's kind of asking about your sort of international activities there, Magnus. And then if anybody else has any questions, feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the Q&A and I'll come to you shortly. Good morning, Manuel.
Morning, Jay. Thank you. Ask a question to Magnus about Catapult, and which is Catapult recently signed an MOU with E3 in Taiwan. Because I'm based in Taiwan, that's why it's interesting to me to know if there's any progress. And of course, yeah, personally, I hope there will be more exchange between Wales and Taiwan in the future. Yeah, first that question. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Manuel. Unfortunately, I personally don't know an awful lot about it myself. I know we have the partnership with China, and because China is expected to be a huge export market, we're working with them to try and facilitate that. But if you want to drop me a line, I can try and find out more information for you if you want. But unfortunately, at hand, I can't offer anything more at the moment.
I will. Thank you.
Matt's just highlighted that the Q&A is actually missing on Zoom today for some reason. I'm not quite sure why that is, but feel free to use the chat in place of Q&A if that is the case. So yeah, please feel free to come in with questions, guys. Some broad ones here for Magnus or Saul to come in with. How do you see the sort of future of testing around the Pembroke Dock region with META? How do you see that kind of growing and developing into the future? Perhaps we could start with Saul on that one.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Jay. So yeah, as we've mentioned that we're sort of newly operational, I think we'll be looking to build experience and through deploying more devices, you know, and create a sort of portfolio of case studies of successful projects, and hopefully attract more people to come and test in the area and set up in Wales. So yeah, I think at the moment, you know, our sites are kind of, they're purely consented test areas, but in the future we could look to sort of install some more permanent infrastructure with the sites. At the moment, the sites are non-grid connected. Yeah, so there could be options in the future for sort of more permanent infrastructure associated with the sites to sort of support testing, or sort of diversifying into different areas of marine energy. So yeah, I think there's probably a lot that could happen, but I think at the moment we're just focusing on sort of our core remit, which is you know, to support wave and tidal energy and other sort of support support services.
Thank you, Saul. And Magnus, how do you see testing and validation developing in Wales over the coming years?
Well, I think the work we're doing in Milford Haven Waterway with META really is only the beginning. We've got the buoy going out later this year, and we hope that that's a facility that will be used time and time again to test new technologies. But from our side, we're interested in, you know, extending the amount of assets we have. We've talked about having other things that we have available for companies that they want to use to test things. And I think that will make the whole process easier if companies know that these things exist. It's much easier for them to come. Elsewhere, obviously, we've got the sites like Ramsey Sound, which is going through a redevelopment process at the moment. I understand that the purpose is to make that an open access test site for testing tidal turbines and, you know, technologies in and around a small tidal array potentially. So I see that as being a very valuable asset if it develops in that way. And then we've also obviously got tidal activities in North Wales as well.
Cool, thank you very much. Matt Foley, you have a question. Would you like to come in with that for Saul?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for organising this. It's really interesting to see what's available. And I think you mentioned briefly about some Quayside sites being available, which I think is a really useful possibility. I wonder if you could say a bit more about them, maybe the depth or the time you might be able to spend at a Quayside site, their availability. Just a little bit more details on that would be useful.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. That's a good question. So yeah, as mentioned, we've got 5 Quayside sites and they're all associated with Pembroke Port. So there's a bit of a variety in sites. I think we've got, one criterion jetty, which is sticks furthest out into the haven, and it's the deepest because it extends furthest into the channel. So that site's up to 13 meters deep and has gets a small amount of tidal stream resource, so kind of up to 1 meter a second. So that, I think that site, that's the deepest site. I think 13 meters sort of average, but there are sort of points in the site that go up to 18 meters, I believe. Then we've got sort of Quay 1, which is the Pembroke Port heavy lift quay, but that's also a site that has been consented for marine energy testing. So there's a 164 meter long quay, so you could potentially sort of dip test a full scale device there, or bring it round for final fit out, or do some, if it's a floating device going to the bottom, do some submergence testing or something like this. So there's crane access right there. And then there's the Mainstay Quay site, which is immediately adjacent to Mainstay Marine, the marine engineers and fabricators there. And there's a big, I can't remember the capacity of their gantry crane that goes down the slipway there, but potentially to bring devices in and out of the water there and do some preliminary sort of testing before they go offshore. And then there's Ferryside and Car Jetty as well, which Ferryside has a pontoon, so potentially dropping like sensors off the side, or literally just lowering something off a pontoon, this. And then there's Car Jetty, which has a slipway and a bit of tidal flow actually through underneath the jetty. So and then all the sites, there's like different bits of infrastructure for options for attaching or mooring devices if needs be. So there's quite a lot of variety at the sites, at the Quayside sites. They all have to we have to schedule activities a little bit with the port, because it's their area primarily. But yeah, they offer really easy access, and quite a lot of variety at the same time.
That's great. Could I just I understand it needs to be scheduled, but if you put it in the water, would it be it needs to be taken out on a daily basis, or could it stay there for a number of days? Or yes,
we've got consent, I think, to leave devices in up to a year. So we could so it can be, it could be a day, it could be a month, it could be up to a year.
Okay.
Yeah. But for Quay 1, for example, because it's it's in high demand, because it's a heavy lift quay, we couldn't leave a device there for a year unless you're willing to pay extra money to the port. So but within reason.
That's great. Thanks for that information. Cool.
So another sort of general question for Magnus and Saul now. What do you sort of see as the biggest challenges for technology testing and development, and how are you helping to overcome them? So maybe if we go to Magnus first. You're on mute, Magnus. Happens at least once in every call.
Are you talking about specifically in Wales or just in general? Or?
We could touch upon both.
Yeah. I think, there's still, we touched on a little bit with things like certification, and that's still a little bit of a challenge for the wave and tidal sector. There are standards, they're still somewhat in development. I would say that's still a challenge because they are still developing those standards. It's difficult, especially in the wave sector, when there's a lot of different technologies. Tidal's a bit more converged. Actually funding things and getting them in the water is still obviously a challenge, particularly at large scale. It's, we don't actually have that many wave and tidal devices in the water yet in Wales, and we actually, I think only 1 or 2 I think have ever been installed. So that's obviously still a challenge once you get to that scale. And I think the way we're working with META hopefully bridges a gap in terms of we can do sort of intermediate scale testing and help fund that. So that helps. Yeah, I don't know if Sol has anything to add to that.
So yeah, no, I think that's put so nicely. I guess the other thing is, consenting projects can take quite a long time. So as like in a broader, getting devices in the water, which we need to increase that learning curve. That's where test centers really come in, as if they've got that consent and streamline it for someone to get some kit in the water. So that's, I guess, one of the ways we're trying to address the consenting challenge is by having these consented areas. So whether that's us at META and then, more lice, PDZ and Ramsey. So yeah, reducing that risk and trying to increase, learning and development.
Okay, thank you, Saul. Thank you, Magnus. We are going to have to wrap up now as we are out of time. But thank you to everybody who's joined us, and thank you to both of our presenters today. They have both put their contact details in the chat, so they are good points of contact if you want to start a conversation about testing and validation for your own technology, your own devices. So please do reach out to them if you want to kind of move forward with that. This event is part of a series, so we will be having more in the future. The next one is on manufacturing for the marine environment. We'll be joined by Mainstay Marine, who are boat builders who have diversified into building marine energy devices here in Wales. You can find out more about these upcoming events at www.selkie-project.eu. And then you can also watch all of the previous events that we've had as part of that series on there. So also please don't forget to check us out on social media. So that's LinkedIn and Twitter. We're Selkie Project, and there's also the Selkie Network group on LinkedIn, where we're trying to facilitate a bit more sort of conversation, assistance, discussion between members of the Selkie Network as well. So yeah, once again, thank you to everybody who's joined us today, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Cheers.
Bye-bye.